most apparent perceptual change to take hold in the information age thus far is the concept of the empowered consumer. An excellent example is the proliferation of online car dealerships in the early 90s. This trend was led by DealerNet, a website dedicated to bringing consumers as much comparative data on automobiles as possible. Imagine yourself a car salesman in 1994. Your profits rely heavily on the markup you charge over the manufacturer's cost. What do you do when suddenly your customers start arriving at the dealership holding printouts of the price you paid for every make and model? Armed with information like this, consumers not only feel more confident, but they know they are in an excellent bargaining position. Consumers are slowly beginning to understand that they, thanks to the internet, are holding all the cards. And this is something that traditional distributors simply are not used to. On the next slide, I will explore the differences between the old industrial system and the new informational one, from the point of view of the consumer. This format will be used throughout the presentation. The industrial age, the industrial age is famously known as the age of mass. Mass production and mass consumption were the rules of the day for an economy built around majority demand. Because consumers were so consistent, building a supply chain to cater to them became a linear mechanical process. Corporations fought to engineer the next great product that would change the lives of the masses. Best example, the automobile. The biggest challenge an industrial company faced was the balancing act of supply and demand. When every product you manufacture requires raw materials, you must ensure a steady supply to keep up with the growing demand. This leads to the concept of diminishing returns. The more you sell, the less you have to sell. In a world where every consumer wants the same pair of Levi's, the precepts of mass made perfect sense. It was assumed, and quite rightly for several decades, that every consumer had the same desires. Henry Ford, creator of the first consumer-level automobile, said it best: "You can have any color you want, as long as it's black." However, as early as the 1960s, consumers began to crave more personality from their everyday products. Slowly, it became unsatisfactory to simply have products which did what they were supposed to do. They had to do it in the style of the consumer purchasing them. This led to the dawn of the brand. Products began to be sold based on their audience rather than the product itself. Nike, for example, is primarily just a marketing company allied with multiple production lines. When you buy Nike, you get shoes or a t-shirt, but you buy Nike. In the wake of the brand, concepts like market segmentation began to shatter the masses into segments of niche interest. In the 80s came the term market particles, which defined consumer markets as small as families and even individuals. In the 90s came the World Wide Web. Suddenly, too suddenly for most businesses, every consumer became a market of one, and every action they took towards or away from your product was suddenly available as it happened in real time. The frightening part was that it quickly became apparent to producers that each and every consumer was now looking for something completely different. Each of them wanted their products their way. Under the industrial model, consumers were considered the end of the supply chain. Producers decided which products to manufacture, distributors decided which of those to channel, wholesalers largely determined pricing, marketers determined demand, and finally retailers restricted the product's availability geographically. Consumers were stuck with all the buying responsibility, and the available selection was largely limited based on the decisions of the tiers above. As a consumer, it was your responsibility to find a deal. Under the informational model, the supply chain becomes a closed loop. Every sale, in the words of Chris Meyer, author of Blur, is a six-way exchange. The three commodities being traded are economic, information, and emotion. All three travel in all directions across the new supply chain. Truthfully, supply web would be a more appropriate term. Every node in the supply web has the capability, or increasingly the responsibility, to cater to consumer demand. When individual consumers are empowered with the means to contact and negotiate with manufacturers, distributors, wholesalers, and retailers alike, the question shifts from where can I find the best deal to who is going to offer me the best deal. In some cases, the best deal is based on price. However, the real point to be made is that the responsibility for the exchange fundamentally shifts from the consumer to the producer. For example, if I as a consumer have instant access to a comparative listing of all related products all over the world, you as a producer better give me a compelling reason to choose you as my vendor. The producers are suddenly forced to shop for qualified consumers. The hunters have become the hunted. When that happens, the question between producers shifts from who got the most sales to who made the most customers the happiest. The main factor of production shifts from tangible product to the intangible customer relationship. The wonderful thing about intangible commodities, such as customer relationships, is that they are not only inexhaustible, but they actually become more valuable the more you use them. Brian Arthur, the New Age economist, called it the law of increasing returns. Them that has, gets. This law inherently makes producers liable to their customers. They must customize their offer to each individual consumer's desires and foster every single relationship to keep them happy. Producers and distributors call it customer personalization. Marketers call it one-to-one marketing. Really, they're all part of the same thing, the empowerment of the individual consumer. Production becomes combination product-service offerings built by the wants.